Hello everyone watching this video. This is Amanda Fernandez. Now normally this would technically be a study guide video, but I managed and was lucky enough to look ahead, and the teacher was kind enough to post the questions that are going to be on the test. So I'm just going to be focusing in the next few series for exam 3 just on 3 specific questions that are going to be answered in the next test. So for the first question, if you are following along with this video, the question is asking, how would you teach reading workshop? So this is me personally. For other students maybe watching this video, or for somebody else who's trying to answer this question, they might do something completely different. But for me, first and foremost, I would make sure my students are at the proper reading level. And when I say proper reading level, I don't mean like all students have to be at 3rd grade level. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is students need to be at the level that they can read. So that means before you even try doing a reading workshop, or if you remember from the last exam, we talked about guided reading or small group guided reading type circles. That's kind of what reading workshop is. It's just students in a small group reading with each other while everybody else in the classroom is doing like a daily 5 or a different activity or silent reading by themselves. Sorry, that was a little off tangent. But yeah, no. So proper reading level is for the students themselves. So if you have, let's say, a class of 3rd graders, and there are some 3rd graders whose reading levels, after you might have assessed them, whether that's through different reading assessments or like a Dibbles program, or marking down how many words they can read by themselves without help or guidance. Whatever the case, you first and foremost need to mark down what reading level they are at. So if you have a class of 3rd graders and some are reading at a 1st grade level, others are reading at a 5th grade level, or some are still in the average range of, hey, we're reading at a 3rd grade level, then that's what you need to do first and foremost. So that's, or at least that's what I would do, is make sure they're at the proper reading level before I split them off into groups. Then next up is small groups. Small groups, one is great because you can assess multiple students at a time, but also you kind of get that one-on-one with each and every student in that reading grade level. And then on top of that, you can focus on those particular students in that grade level. So for example, like you could be working with the group of students who are reading at a 1st grade level and just solely focus on helping that 1st grade level get caught up with the other students, if at all possible. Sometimes it takes longer for other students. But small groups I like personally because you get to know the students at a better level. You're not focusing on everybody else. It's not going to be chaotic as much. And with reading workshops, that's kind of what it is. It's a workshop in a small group setting where you're solely focusing on the kids. So I would definitely, and I would also purposely split off my small groups based on reading grade level. This is important because you don't want somebody who's reading at a 1st grade level trying to read at a 3rd grade level and them not understanding what's going on, what different terms are, if they can't even read at that level. Which is, right now, especially with COVID, I'm noticing that that's a problem right now, is not a lot of teachers are able to do these reading workshops, or they're just not doing these reading workshops. That's one thing I will say about my host teacher that I wish she did, was small group reading workshops. What she would do is she would split off the students into different small groups based on their reading level, but she wouldn't change the book. The book was the same for everyone. And in my opinion, that was a big issue. She should have changed the books based on the reading level that each of the students were in, or use that book as kind of, hey, this is classroom big group reading book. And then when doing small group reading, they change books. But she didn't do that. She just kept it with one book and wasn't very consistent on how long they were going to be reading for. Which, in all honesty, that wasn't necessarily her fault. She only had like 2 hours to teach everything. That's normally taught in like 5 hours, 6 hours at most, maybe, in a normal school day. So definitely, I wouldn't say it was her fault per se. She just didn't have enough time and in the time slot she was given, which is sad. But that was kind of the card she was dealt with. But that's kind of what I would do. Is definitely some small groups based off of reading level and different books that will help that reading level. During the reading workshops, teachers, obviously, you have a very important job. First thing that as a teacher I would do is first I would listen to each student reading. Obviously, first try to have them silently read and then go around the table or obviously like maybe tap on a student and say, okay, I want you to read to me where you're at. Just read aloud to me, okay? And have them read aloud and you can listen to what they're reading to you by themselves. Observe what they're reading to you. Listen carefully what it is that they're struggling with, whether that's fluency, literacy, maybe they're having a hard time understanding and comprehending words. So definitely be observing and taking notes on what students need to work on. And then guide. Guidance would probably be towards the end of what they're reading. So either you can give them advice, or if it's as simple as, hey, they're struggling on a word, help them spell it out or give them a definition of what that word means. So, or even like ask questions about what they've read to you, just so they can give you an idea of what they remember or what they learned or what they're struggling with, just so then you have a better idea on how to help that student. During the workshop, you should be focusing on one skill, or at least one reading skill. So this can be from fluency to literacy to comprehension to vocabulary, or even as simple as, hey, let's identify quotation marks, speed, or periods at the end of the sentence and what to do with them. So that's something that I think some teachers struggle with, is they don't just focus on one skill, they'll try to do multiple skills. And in some cases, that's great, but not a lot of students can handle that much. So try to focus on one, maybe 2 skills. I would prefer one skill, and just solely focus on that. So if that means, hey, you know what, we're going to focus on fluency today, and I want you to take out a highlighter or a pencil or a pen, and I want you to circle all the not quotation marks, the punctuation marks at the end of each sentence, and then explain to them what they need to do at the end when they find those quotation marks, what they need to do personally when they're reading, which is pausing, take a breath, pause, and then continue on reading. That's focusing on a skill of fluency. Now, obviously, you can focus on any skill. That's just an example I would use, because I know there's a lot of students, they don't understand, hey, when I'm reading, I need to pause for a second, take a breath, and then continue reading. When I reach like a period or a comma, something like that. And that's something my brother struggled with too. Still continues to struggle with sometimes as well. And then some of you are probably wondering, well, while you're doing the reading workshop, what are you going to have your students doing? So I would have my other students in my class who I'm not focusing on that day for a reading workshop, is I'm going to have them be doing their daily 5. So while I'm focusing on one group for the day, the other students are going to be doing their daily 5. And we've talked about the daily 5 last week, but essentially the daily 5 is just different daily activities that students can be doing. There's 5. Some of them consist of partner reading, reading silently. I think some of them involve finding or identifying words that they may or may not understand, or vocabulary words. Audio listening to the book and answering comprehension questions, or writing down what they learned or what they liked about the book in like a reading journal or something like that. So that's something. So that would be technically a daily 5 of what my students would be doing. Other than that, the reading workshop is basically guided reading. It's just got a different name. And it's a good chance, one, not only as a teacher to see where your students are at in their reading, but you can also assess, help them, guide them. If we're lucky enough, maybe during your observations or your assessments, when you're reading with students, you notice them going up in a level, then you can switch groups and help students who are struggling more, or students that are in advanced. Obviously, try to challenge them more in these groups. But that's kind of what reading workshop is. It's fun. It's small groups. You get a chance to work with your students a little more one-on-one in a small group. And using the proper reading material that the students can read instead of focusing on solely just one level of reading. And I think that's going to be it for this question. Hopefully I answered the question, and maybe those of you who are obviously just watching this video for extra information, thank you so much for tuning in. I will hopefully see you in the next video, where we are going to be talking about the Frayer model and how it works with vocabulary instruction. Other than that, you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.